Right now, somewhere on this planet, someone is pulling on a jersey, one of the most ordinary objects in human history, and almost no one knows where it actually came from. The answer starts on a 9-mile-wide island in the English Channel, between England and France. Its name is Jersey, and for centuries before the sport existed, it was famous for exactly one thing. Since at least the 1400s, jerseys people knitted. Wool was shaped into close-fitting garments prized by sailors across northern Europe. The fabric took the island's name. By 1563, the knitting trade was so profitable that Jersey's parliament, the States, passed laws banning knitting during harvest season. People were choosing wool over food. The word jersey crossed the channel into mainland Britain as a name for any close-fitting knitted top. Sailors wore it. Miners wore it underground. It was practical, warm, and entirely unglamorous. Then came the Victorians and their obsession with organized competition. In 1863, gentlemen at the Freemasons' Tavern in London wrote down the first unified rules of association football. The Football Association immediately faced a problem they hadn't anticipated. When two teams arrived in similar colored shirts, nobody, referee, spectator, or player could easily tell them apart. Sheffield Football Club, founded in 1857 and recognized as the world's oldest association football club, played in a single club color. As rival clubs formed across England, clashes became inevitable. The solution was a block of color, a heavy wool flannel shirt. No numbers, no names, just wool absorbing rain until a player's shirt weighed several times what it had at kickoff. Early jerseys were genuinely miserable. Wool soaks water. By the second half of a winter match, players were running in garments closer in weight to a coat than a shirt. When clubs arrived in clashing colors, which happened often, players wore colored caps or tied ribbons around their arms. It was chaotic, and everyone knew it. The FA Cup, launched in 1871, forced clubs to define official colors for the first time. It also carried football from London's drawing rooms into the industrial north of England. Blackburn, Preston, Bolton, Aston Villa, factory towns took to football with a seriousness that surprised the game's founders. In those towns, jersey color stopped being practical. It became tribal. Newton Heath, Lancashire, and Yorkshire Railway Football Club, the club that would eventually become Manchester United, played their early matches in green and gold. Identity was already being stitched into color. But jerseys still had no numbers. On a muddy pitch with 22 players in identical shirts, referees and crowds tracked individuals by face and physique alone. It was guesswork at any distance. The question of who first put numbers on jerseys is genuinely contested. Some historians point to an Australian rules football match in Sydney in 1911. The most cited English moment came 17 years later. On the 28th of April, 1928, Arsenal played Huddersfield Town at Wembley Stadium. Both teams wore numbers, Arsenal 1 through 11, Huddersfield 12 through 22. The first numbered FA Cup final. A number told you who had the ball. It let a referee name who committed a foul. It gave 90,000 spectators a shared language for following the same player across 90 minutes. The Football League didn't require numbers until 1939. Then, the Second World War interrupted everything. Numbering didn't fully standardize across English football until the 1940s. And then the numbers took on weight. 1 was the goalkeeper. 9 was the center forward, the predator. 10 was the creative genius. These became archetypes, not logistics. For nearly a century, jerseys were wool or cot. Then in the 1970s, synthetic polyester arrived, lighter, faster drying, and manufacturable at a scale wool had never allowed. A small British company called Admiral signed a deal with Leeds United in 1973. For the first time, a manufacturer's logo appeared alongside a club badge on the same shirt. A jersey became a product. Admiral then sold replica versions directly to fans. You could now wear the same shirt as Billy Bremner or Johnny Giles. Within a few years, the replica market was generating millions of pounds annually. The major brands watched and moved fast. Adidas, Umbro, Nike, Puma, they began bidding for national and club contracts. By the 1980s, the jersey had become a commercial canvas. Television did what advertising budgets alone could not. When the World Cup entered living rooms globally, the jerseys traveled with it. Brazil's canary yellow became one of the most recognized garments on Earth. After Brazil's 1970 World Cup triumph in Mexico, Pelé's number 10 shirt achieved near-mythic status worldwide. Players at every level began to understand that a jersey could carry meaning far beyond a single game. When the English Premier League launched in 1992, clubs gained the right to negotiate their own kit deals and shirt sponsorships. A jersey now carried 4 separate commercial and institutional identities at once. In 1993, the Premier League introduced squad numbers and player names printed on the back of shirts. You could buy a shirt with your hero's name above their number. Sales exploded. Meanwhile, in the United States, another jersey was doing something unprecedented. Michael Jordan's Chicago Bulls number 23 transcended basketball. In cities where the sport was barely played, that red and black shirt meant something universal. The NBA's international push in the 1980s and 90s placed jerseys in markets worldwide. When the American Dream Team played in Barcelona in 1992, the NBA jersey became a global fashion object overnight. A modern jersey begins as recycled polyester. By some estimates, many major manufacturers now use reclaimed plastic bottles as their primary raw material. The fiber is spun, knitted, cut, and assembled across continents. Color is applied through dye sublimation, heat and pressure bond ink directly into the fiber rather than coating the surface. The result survives hundreds of washes without fading. Victorian flannel never came close. Elite match jerseys today weigh under 150 grams. A Victorian wool shirt, soaked through in a winter match, could approach 1 kilogram. The engineering gap between those two objects is one of sport's most dramatic. The jersey's commercial success has a shadow. The counterfeit replica market is, by most industry estimates, enormous. Hundreds of millions of fake jerseys enter circulation annually, produced primarily in Southeast Asia and sold worldwide. At the top end of the market, authentic match-worn jerseys have become serious collectibles. Pelé's shirts, Bobby Moore's shirts, Ronaldo's shirts, they pass through auction houses alongside paintings and sculptures. In 2022, Diego Maradona's pale blue and white number 10 shirt, worn against England in the 1986 World Cup quarterfinal, sold at auction for over $9 million. That shirt still carries, by some accounts, traces of the Azteca Stadium. It is a piece of fabric worth $9 million because of what happened inside it during one afternoon in June 1986. Below the auction houses, a secondary market has exploded. Limited editions, player-issued shirts, retro designs, entire platforms now exist to trade jerseys the way earlier generations traded stamps or coins. Something unexpected happened at the fashion end. Artisan manufacturers now hand-produce Victorian-style football shirts that sell for hundreds of dollars to collectors who never intend to play in one. Somewhere in the last 50 years, the jersey became more than sportswear. It became a flag worn on the body, a declaration of allegiance and identity as specific as any coat of arms. From a small Channel Islands knitting trade to a market worth tens of billions of dollars annually, the jersey followed the exact path of football itself: local, practical, and then suddenly everywhere. When a child in Lagos pulls on a Holland shirt, they are part of a chain running unbroken from a Victorian mud pitch to a dye sublimation factory in Vietnam. One garment, 150 years. Jersey's population is roughly 100,000 people. The island gives its name to billions of garments every year. Almost none are made there now, or even from wool, but the name endured. A fabric named for fishermen became the uniform of athletes, then the armor of fans, then a global commodity, all while remaining, at its core, just cloth you pull over your head. The next time you pull on a jersey, you are wearing the knitting traditions of a small island, the organizational chaos of Victorian football clubs, and 150 years of commercial ingenuity. This is Origins. Subscribe and come back tomorrow. There's a new origin every single morning.